Hey there, everybody. Welcome back. It's time for the final episode. Maybe this shouldn't be called an episode, final lesson, painting dramatic clouds. And so this is part 5. And what I'll be doing is final details. It's just like you would do if you're at the end of a painting, but I'm going to be identifying what I think will make this painting the best. And I'm just going to walk through that in real time. I don't have a plan of exactly what I'm going to do. I want you to see my process for identifying things on my final run through of a painting to try to make these clouds look their best. And so, as usual, you can help us a lot with your comments and keep us posted on any technical difficulties, as I do want this to be a really useful resource for future viewers. We are recording. This is free for the week. And as I've done with all of the parts of this series, it's free for the week until the next one comes. Then it gets pulled from YouTube so that I can edit the full course, and then I'll be selling it on my website in the future. So if you'd like to see that right now, the previous lessons, then you can go and look into subscribing at muraljoe.com. And I never like anybody to not be able to because of money. Just send an email if the cost is an issue. I try to keep prices in an affordable range. That's very important to me. So just let me know. You can send paintings to info@muraljoe.com if you would like those to be seen on today's live stream. So at the end of this show, I'll be looking at any paintings that we have time for. We don't always have time for everything that is in the inbox, but everything we can get to. So that's always a good time. I love seeing what you are all up to. A lot of the time it's inspiring to me. I'm seeing work that looks better than what I've done some of the time. So thank you to those of you who are brave enough to put your work out for everyone to see on the YouTube channel here live. So welcome back, all of you. I see a lot of familiar names, a lot of familiar faces. We have Dwayne on the comments again today. My brother Ben is still out of town celebrating his 40th birthday. So for any of you who are not familiar, this is Dwayne. He's saying hi to you. He's helping out. He's filling in. He did a great job last week on a very short notice. I really put him on the spot. He's like, sure, I'll give it a try, so kudos to Dwayne for being ready on the spot. So he's got you covered on comments. He's going to make sure that we don't miss anything. And so just give us a shout, Dwayne, if you see anything that we need to pay attention to as I'm painting here.
We got some good mornings from Israel, the UK, from Turkey, and the Netherlands.
Awesome. All right. We got it widespread. Man, it's always so exciting for me to hear that. Thank you. You who are out in very different time zones. Can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to join us. Your time is important, and you really make me feel extra important by giving your time to watching this. So thank you. And thank you for spreading the word and helping the channel to grow. It means a lot to me, to us. So you just keep the conversation going. Let us know if anything needs to be done here. I'm going to start on this painting. So I have refilled my colors. Now the colors are the same. I didn't change any colors. Well, to the best of my ability. I probably didn't do exact matches when I remixed, but I have all of the same colors that I started the painting with. And there's a good chance that I'll be bringing in just a little bit of my primary colors, meaning the colors that I mixed these from, for perhaps some extra little accents. If I need to put a dark cloud in the foreground, a light cloud in the background, I don't know. We'll see as it progresses. If my imagination gives me any good ideas, we're doing it in real time. So who knows? Now, first thing I want to do is go up here and get the rest of this covered. I've got my handy dandy step ladder here. We're going to put this in place, and I'm going to go up here I love speaking to an international audience because it makes me conscious of the words I'm using. We have a lot. Now, I know that English is very familiar to so many of you, and you're better than me for that. There's a lot of multilingual people out there, but I think it's funny. I hear myself using sloppy English, saying words like I'm gonna go up here and do this thing, and I think, how well does that translate to an international audience? I was talking with my good friend in China, and I said two important words that you have to learn in English, in everyday English. Two important words are gonna and goda. Gonna and goda. I'm gonna go to work now because I hear myself saying them all the time. And of course, that means I'm going to go to, but gonna goda. I think language is funny and fascinating. I wish I could learn them all. I'm a lover of language. I think for a similar reason that I'm a lover of the science of colors. And I think I love language for the same reason. I love music probably for the same reason. Just, I see mechanical tools for complex communication, I guess. I love it. So what I'm doing is putting a nice dark shadow color so that this cloud comes forward. And of course, as always, I'm putting my transition color or my mid-tone in between where I would put the shadow and the highlight. So I first put this mid-tone on here, and I can just do a real quick swish in my water pan, wipe it on my rag. If I need to go to my light color, because I really want to keep my light color bright. So I don't need to have 100% clean brush, but it helps to be able to get the excess. And when I say excess, I mean anything that could just wipe right off of the brush when it touches the canvas. You'll see when you work with water-based paint that it very quickly dries on the very surface of the brush. And so it's no big deal. It's like it just goes away as soon as you put wet paint and you start painting again. But you do constantly have a dryness along the outside, the very tippy tips of the brush. You have a dryness on that causes it not to transfer. And so for that reason, and look, it actually does transfer. This is staying nice and watery for me. But for that reason, I don't have to be as careful as I have to be with oil paint. So that's the point that I want to make, is there's probably more forgiveness on color switching, going back and forth from light colors to dark colors, light colors, dark colors. When you're using water base, that switching doesn't cause you to have such a messy look to your painting as it does with oil. It's just more difficult to not have the colors bleed together when you're using oil. Any oil painter can tell you that. There's a lot more care that needs to be taken to keep dark and light colors from destroying each other when you're working with oil. So I enjoy the speed and the versatility of the water base. While it may be more difficult to get perfected details, every medium does have its advantage. So that's not to say that these are better than oils, just my preference. I like being able to quickly put layers on and get right to the point, get right to the idea that I've got in my head. It lends itself well to quick creativity, being able to put it on fast. Switch back and forth between colors. And I just wipe off the excess. So here I'm in the lightest color. I'll have to do something to make this jump in front of this cloud. Right now they're just bleeding together. So I'll think about that. I'll probably put a shadow on the top of this one, which will look good anyway because this cloud might be casting a shadow on that. So we'll think about that. In the meantime, I'll go up here and I'll go to my mid-tone. Just put that right there so that it's starting to go into the darker color. Once that's there, I can go to the darkest color, and I might just go like this. Instead of going to the water and the towel, I might just wipe the excess off on some scrap board or something, just excess paint. And I go here, put that dark color against my mid-tone, and they do all mix together, and that's good. You know, I plan on that with my mixes. Nothing really ends up being maybe small portions of my colors end up being 100% the color I mixed. But for the most part, all of the colors on the canvas end up mixing with each other and being some blend of all three of my colors, rather than being just one of the colors. There's lots of mixing going on. So if I just plan for that, I just mix all my colors bold enough that when they mix with the others, they look good. Okay, so I'm putting shadow in this cloud, and I'll just leave it right there. I don't need a lot of fine details because I want this cloud to look close. So it's actually better if it looks more foggy, because that's what a close cloud looks like. It opens up, we don't see the details. It's when they're far away that we see the real tight details. So that's what I'll do here. I want the top of this cloud going up behind that. And so I like the idea of, and actually, you know, this would be, I'm changing the subject for a minute. This would be the back side of the cloud. We're looking up at the bottom, and the back side of it is in more of a shadow than the front side of this cloud. So this is important to think about when I'm setting up my perspective, my three-dimensional world here. I want to think about what has more light on it, what has less light. This bottom edge of this close cloud will have less light than the front face of this cloud. So that makes sense. So if I want any of this, so I need to darken that. My point is, it's okay to darken this. I missed it. The reason I'm really belaboring that point at the moment is because I'm realizing I missed it. As I was just throwing this thing up there, I did a really bright lower edge, and I don't actually want that. So let's go like this, put some shadow in there. It's got a good amount of that. I don't like so much of that transition color in there. So I'm going to go over here and kind of blend over that. A little bit goes a long way. Okay, I like that better. See, I have just enough to keep this gray violet from turning into an unpleasant kind of just gray when it mixes with my highlight. I need that color. As I've said already many times in this course, I need that color in the transition to get my lifelike glow effect. Okay, now I'm painting the bright face of this cloud coming out from behind, down below this. So I'll just put little dots in here, and we'll get a nice close shot of this. Something I do a lot is paint the negative space, the space in between the objects that I'm focusing on. So here, these little dots, this is the bright cloud showing from behind this darker edge. And this is a good technique. You bounce back and forth, positive space, negative space, positive space, negative space. You'll get shapes on this dark cloud. I'll get shapes that I won't get if I just paint the cloud itself. So if I paint the space in between the cloud as well, then I'll get a different kind of shape, and it causes my cloud to look more natural, more diverse. And I'll just keep touching it with that corner. Once again, I'm painting with this corner of the brush. Now see how it breaks up that edge? I get a more interesting broken up edge on that cloud. And that edge is important to me because I really want to see the separation between this close cloud and the further cloud. Now this starts getting brighter as it wraps around. I've got light shining over my right shoulder. So coming from behind me over my right shoulder, boom, light's coming this way. So this edge, as it comes closer to me, has to get brighter. That's why I've got it brighter up here, darker as it goes down. And so then I think something that might be neat is to do a quick little reverse of values. So this one is lighter here. I don't know if I can pull this off. I'm going to try it. So here, because I think this will be a really nice and interesting look if I can get it. So I'm going to get this just the right brightness, getting darker, darker, darker as it comes down and wraps in front of this. Now I want this cloud to be just dark enough that it's actually darker than this, where there's a cast shadow like this one. So I'm going to put a cast shadow right on the top of this cloud. Let's see how it looks. I don't know if this is going to be cool, but I think it will. And we're just going to go ahead and use a somewhat sharp edge because this cloud is behind. So remember, I used a lot less of the transition color in my cast shadows, meaning the shadow that's projected onto a cloud from another cloud. Just, just like if you're doing any art project, light shines on something that makes it cast a shadow. And so we just put the shadow. Now this might be the shadow of, I don't know, one of these big clouds here. If this is closer, this is further, the light might come this way and we might project the shadow right onto this cloud right here. So I'm going to wipe some excess paint out of my brush again and try to get a softer edge. So I've got a little bit of excess dark paint in there. I'm going to grab my light color and try to make this edge a bit softer. And it's good for it to maybe mix just a touch, maybe a tiny bit of my transition so that it doesn't look overly gray in comparison with the other colors. And getting it wet on wet, that's going to cause this to look softer and therefore closer. I don't want too sharp of an edge as I'm overlapping these. There we go. So now I got this cloud in front of this, and this one has two tones on it. It's got the light and the cast shadow. I just felt like that would be a really interesting element in my picture to have believability, Okay, so we'll build a shadow here, put maybe some puffs, because this is the shadow of a cloud, and then maybe it bumps out like this. We can make a three-dimensional shadow. Cloud. That was a mix between shadow and cloud. Three-dimensional shroud. This is a shroud I'm painting on this cloud. Okay, we're going to go like this. Shadow. We're going to highlight the shadow. I'm going to get off my soapbox. And we're going to go like this. How are we looking in the chat today, Dwayne?
We got a few questions right now. One of the questions is, Joe, I tried painting clouds and they did not turn out well. Any suggestions?
Yes. Watch all my videos on painting clouds because that really is the best suggestion I can give for what I would do. I studied for a good long time, being obsessed with just what it takes to get clouds to look natural and be able to create them on demand. And because I had a passion for that studying, I think that the content will lead you the right way. I think the content is good. I didn't find it in other places. I think that my role is to be a tool maker and answer finder, but my hope is that you take that information and do better things than I could do. It's just information, this is knowledge about what makes things look the way they do. And so I can tell you right now, if your clouds are looking unnatural, there's probably something you don't know rather than something you can't do. I don't think it's because there's something that you can't do. I don't think that's true. I think that you just got to find that targeted question. Why does my cloud look flat? Why does my cloud look like it's not glowing? Specific questions. There are answers that I've posted about all those things. So if you have a good question, I think you're a lot closer to getting the problem solved than if you don't, because I've just found that questions are the powerful leader toward information that you remember. Okay, now I don't know. I like that shadow. I think it's cool. I don't want to go too far with it. So let's just say it kind of goes off, and maybe this part of the cloud this kind of looks like it goes in and out. So let's make this go in and out. So let's say there's no shadow here. We'll just take this over here like this, and we'll just make it a soft transition here because I kind of like the idea. I love this cavity. I want to put another one like it over here. I don't know why. It just seems like it'll look good. That still happens. And as much as I like to talk through what you might think of as the science behind it, meaning the very analytical research, trying to find precise answers to take the guesswork out of it. That's all I mean when I say the science of it. The scientific method, using experiments, trial and error to find a reliable way to keep doing this. But when all that's said and done, I still find myself doing things just because I feel like I should. I never just stop. Isn't that true, Dwayne? He's an artist too.
Yes, sir.
Dwayne is a fantastic artist. He does a lot of Native American themed work. He does a lot of that. He's very good at it. He does stuff that I wouldn't think of, that really catches people's eye. He's done a great job of marketing himself. One of these days, I got to interview you, Dwayne.
Yeah.
I do. Fun. You've done things that I'm not good at, and I think it'd be valuable to pick your brain a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
All right, we're going to just bring this. It gets darker, then I'm just blending it up. I'm having some fun blending the three-dimensional shape. So as I work my way out of the shadow, I'm imagining this kind of bumping out here. So maybe this is kind of a ceiling right here that comes out, and then as it goes up, I have to switch to the transition color before I switch to the highlight color. And I'm not even cleaning my brush out in between on these.
On that note, we got a question from Ladybird. Are these paints a flat satin, semi-gloss, or does it matter?
Satin.
Satin.
Yeah, I use mostly satin. The reason for that preference is that I don't like completely flat paint as it has a way of not letting my dark colors show. Flat paint breaks up the light. It doesn't have reflection on it. It can be really nice for that, but there's a chalky look to it, and my blacks are not as black. My shadows are not as dark. And so I like to have some sheen on it. But then if I go the other way and I use gloss, then the reflection can be so obnoxious. I can see texture that I don't want to see. And that's why people use low. I mean, I'm sure you already know this, why people use low sheen paint, because it hides texture. And, it makes it blend together real nicely. So I just use the happy medium. It's just the middle of the road. It's the middle ground. Okay.
We got a quick question from
Go ahead, shoot.
She says, how do you clean your brushes? I can't seem to get all the paint out.
Soap. I'm sorry, that seems like such a non-helpful answer, but I went for years and years not using soap in my brush. So using like a degreaser dish soap, using that in your brush at the end of every session makes a big difference. There's pigment, you're not, so you can be tricked when you're washing out brushes. And I remember this from being on the paint crew. You're throwing around a big 3-inch brush, painting doors and jams and siding. You got to wash that brush out at the end of the day. And since paint is in a water base, you wash it in water and then you stop seeing the paint come out. You're like, the brush is clean. But the pigment is not necessarily based in oil or water. The pigment is ground up powder a lot of the time, just suspended in the base. And that can turn into a sludge. It's like a kind of grime that stays in the brush. And I believe that that's the culprit most of the time. And that's what soap can really help with. It's like washing dirt out of something. It suspends those particles, helps them get out of the very base of the brush. Because this is what we all hate, isn't it? We hate when it gets lodged in the base of the bristles and forces them apart. Then your brush doesn't perform like it was supposed to. So soap is really good for that. Now, I will tell you, for those of you it matters to, just because I can, I have accidentally left my brush in unusual things like separated paint that just has the base. That's the paint. If you leave paint sit for a long time, you'll see the base of the paint. And it's just a transparent, syrupy texture. That's actually really good for cleaning the brushes. You leave them soak in that, it'll clean them good. But you gotta leave them soak. So you can experiment with things. I heard a chemist say like dissolves like. So you can use, it's like using peanut butter to clean up peanut butter. Okay, I'm liking the way this I'm liking the way this shadow's coming out, but look, I've got a problem. I'm seeing this is now popping forward. And I don't want that to pop forward. I want it to go back because I've got this set back with shadows. It's behind this cloud. This one has atmosphere. So I always have to look for conflicts of distance. I want everything to tell the same story. So I got to make sure. And I think this happens more when I come and do something days apart. I can forget about things like this. So I'm glad that I caught this. I got to make sure I put the atmosphere color. That's just the sky color, to make sure that that is nice and far away, so that I have my distance looking appropriate here. Okay, so what have we got here? I'm trying to understand the shape I created. And, I've got this one kind of close, got this one popping out. And so we'll just make it kind of separate right there. I like this coming forward. I like this shadow. I don't like this spot here. So that's why it's good to have your colors mixed in batches so you can come back to them real quick. I'm just going to do some surgery on this cloud. We're going to amputate. I'll take this right off. Sorry, you didn't make the cut. You've got to go away.
I got a question about the brushes. What kind of brush do you use?
I love to use flat brushes. Don't let me mislead you. Use any brush, because so much of my work I feel is accomplished by understanding and not by having just the right tool. So I don't want to be misleading and say this is the kind of brush you need, but I do want you to have accurate information. I love flat brushes, and so this one is very cheap. I don't spend a lot on brushes. I just, I've spent a lot on brushes and I destroy them. And then I just feel like I'm paying more to destroy brushes. And so these are like the $5 brushes. And I just look for the synthetic bristles that have the flat chisel shape. Sometimes they're angled, sometimes they're not. Probably more often than not, they are angled. Okay, I like the way I'm liking this better. See how when I cut that off, I've got two clouds merged together, and then I've got this kind of cave in here. I like that look better. I've got complexity. I've got a cast shadow. I've got my deep atmosphere. Now here's something worth looking at. Because I'm doing this according to every color represents a part. It's not just a color, it's a part. There's a method to why every color is on this. So when you're painting like that, these good things happen. Like I've got two shadows here that might look similar otherwise, but this one has less of the atmosphere blue color in it. And these two different colors will cause this one to look like it's a surface because it's less colorful. And look, this more vibrant color looks like the translucent cloud. The light is going inside the cloud, making the color burst out of it, and that mixing with the atmosphere creates a more vivid violet. But I didn't really think through all that. I just said, here I want atmosphere in my shadow. Here, this is a light color with the cast shadow on it. I could mix some blue with that, but because it didn't have the transition on it, it's not going to have that vivid, more vivid purple color. So these things just automatically happen when you paint very methodically like this, and I feel excited about that. Okay, now I'm going to go down here. Just interrupt me anytime, Dwayne, if somebody's
got it
trying to get something out there. Don't be afraid. I'm just talking through this to hear my thoughts. It actually does help me think.
We got a nice comment from Art of Ray. He says, I've been following you for a while, and I always say, well, Meryl Joe taught me.
All right,
Fill in
sweet.
the blank. Thank you for teaching me.
All right, nice, man. Thanks for that compliment. Art, tell me again that username.
Art of Ray.
Art of Ray. Thank you so much for that nice compliment. I appreciate that. Really makes me feel good. Okay, I'm going to go in here. Now, this cloud to me looks a little bit flat. So I'm going to adjust this one. And the way I'm going to adjust it is put more shadow on the lower side and keep the brightness on this side, because I want this to look like This is the far side. We're under this cloud because it's high in my picture, kind of like this one. See, it's darker here. It's way brighter here. So that's the way I stage it. Like the light is shining this way on these clouds. I went a little too bright on this edge. That would be the far edge of it. So no problem. We'll put a little bit of highlight color in there, but not as much as was there. So go in here, put that edge. The paint dries darker, so it may look like I'm just putting the same color on, but it's darker. It's going to be darker when it dries. That's also a valuable little piece to remember when you're working with very similar values, meaning lightness, darkness. That's what I mean when I say values. That the paint dries darker, and you can get better and better at memorizing just how much it's going to darken. You can get better at estimating that and predicting if a color is going to darken down to a match or not. So I find myself having to do that all the time, trying to predict, is this a good match to what I'm trying to accomplish? When it dries, is it going to be just the right color? You get better at predicting that as you just continue to put that color on there. So now I'm brighter up here on the top, and maybe just a little, because maybe it's getting a little bit of the shadow from this cloud too. I don't know. We'll see how that looks when it dries. It's also a very, very small amount of cloud, so it would glow quite a bit. You know, the light glows into the shadows. Like we talked about in last week's part of this series, you know, we talked about the light glowing into the shadow and causing that shadow to be smaller. When I have these close clouds, we can make them look close by putting the shadow further to the center, as though the light is actually penetrating further, because it's a smaller yet closer cloud. So I'm just going to kind of scramble up the shape. This kind of a overly predictable, perfect, pointy shape. I guess that's something that you see a lot of. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to seeing clouds that you think, if I painted that, nobody would believe me that I really saw it. They would say that's fake. Yet sometimes you see real clouds in the sky that kind of look like that. No way. Okay, now I'm going to go down here. I'm really happy that I finally got the canvas covered, all but this little spot. Was that driving any of you crazy? Brian, you were back there just hating on this. Brian was back there saying, when is he going to paint that top corner? We're going to get that painted now.
We got a question asking, who are some of your favorite artists or painters?
Okay. Favorite artists, painters. We'll start with the obvious. I love Bob Ross. We all love Bob Ross. That's an easy one. And I love him because he seemed like he was really about the joy of painting. It was a good name for the show because it really seemed like he was about that. And I looked at a lot of Thomas Kincaid paintings. I loved the charm and the glow of those. And so I know very few famous artist names. So Kincaid, Bob Ross were names I remembered because everyone was throwing around those names. They were very famous at the time. And so I'd look at the painting and say, well, how did they do that? Now, really, the artist that I want to see is you. That you sharing your work, that is more exciting to me than going to a museum and enjoying famous pieces. I love the feeling of being with you, painting together, and seeing what we're accomplishing right now just by having fun in the medium and doing things. So those of you who have been back, have shared your paintings multiple times, you are now my favorite artists because you're the ones that I want to impress. You're the ones that I want to work with. You know, you're the ones I'm spending time with. So that makes you my favorite, I guess. Okay, now what I'm doing down here is putting a horizon in place. So this is where we're going to see maybe some sky popping through. You can have, I could put trees. I could put a horizon of trees down here. I'm just not going to. I just want to put, well, I don't know, Dwayne, I'm going to I'm gonna get your input a little bit on this. Do you think that I should put treetops in here to cut off the sky, or do you think I should just make it disappear into distant horizon colors? What do you think?
You can put some treetops in there.
That'd be cool, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, I like that idea. We'll do that. So what I'll do is stop a few of these clouds. We'll just bring the sky up and create a background for whatever we're going to put in here. And maybe I'll use a bigger brush too. Here, let's put some. Here's a trick to making the paint go faster too. If you really want to just cover something quick, a watery surface, watch how quick this goes. I just put water on it first. Then when I come over here to my blue and I put it on, it's not a ton. It's not just dripping all crazy. You don't want to do that. But it makes it so fast to just put a layer of blue on there. Okay, I'll put that there. And these are just the undersides of clouds far in the distance, so it's okay for them to be this real flat, horizontal, stretched out shape. Now, in order to be efficient on time, I'm not going to go all the way and perfect all my little edges. I'll just ask for a little bit of forgiveness from you guys on the messiness of my edges so that we can really cut to the important content. When I'm done with the painting, though, I do come over and paint the edges. I come over. You can see this edge here. I'll come in here and I'll paint that color. I've got my colors pre-mixed, so I'll paint it here and I'll come over here. I'll get those colors. I'll get my shadow color and I'll paint it here like this. And I'll do this all around the painting. Having those colors pre-mixed, having enough extra mixed is really helpful for this. It makes the painting look nicer, makes it display better. So in case you ever wondered if that's the method I do, I paint the edges. So what I'll do is maybe finish up a few of these. Let's put some of my mid-tone. And I'm just making some random horizontal colors. At this point, it's mixed a bit with my sky blue, mixed a bit with my shadow, but there's not enough paint for it to all just keep bleeding together. It's just thin enough. When I go and I put these stripes on, I'm looking for thin spots.
What's the info people can send the
paintings to? Send it to info@muraljoe.com. info@muraljoe.com. If you want to have your piece looked at today on this show, just send it to that email.
Daniel was asking how he can get critiqued on his piece.
Okay, all right. Hey there, Daniel. Thanks for being here. That's how. Okay, but I'm not going to be hard on anybody. It's just not my style. I just don't have the nerve. Even if I thought a painting was ugly, which I don't, I just love seeing people have the freedom to be creative. It's something that I thought was really sad growing up to see it get extinguished in people just because the result didn't match someone's standard. Next thing you know, somebody's like, I'm not an artist. No, I would love it if a person's reason for stopping artwork is I don't enjoy doing artwork. I would love that. That's great. We're not all made for the same things. But when someone says something like, oh, because I can't, I don't know. It just sounds like you maybe got the idea forced on you instead of choosing what you wanted. So I like to always say, hey, this is a matter of knowing some answers and choosing whether or not you want to go down that road. And for that reason, I love seeing paintings at all levels, seeing people with the freedom to be creative and just start on that idea. See something start to come to life, see what works, what doesn't. I think it's an exciting thing to just start testing out your theories of what's going to work with color, seeing what you can accomplish. Okay, I'm just filling in some empty spots. We're trying to make these clouds look complete. So I've got some of my transition color, and I like getting a lot of that color down in these lower parts. Because down here is where I see, when I look at a sunset, when I look at a colorful cloudscape, that's where I see the most colors, down low. So I'll put maybe just a touch, just a little bit of that highlight color, just to mix these together. I'm not trying to make any color 100% really. Put that in there. Then we've got our sky, and Jacob reminded me last time, we want to put atmosphere. Wherever I have these darker colors, I really want to make sure I combine them with atmosphere. So that's my blue sky I just put on there. And these are further away. They're really going to look further away if they have atmosphere. So I got to make sure that I put more of that wherever I have these cloud shadows.
Jacob sent a comment too on that. Just to make sure your lower sky color is more saturated or darker than the sky up above.
Say that again. I want to follow. I'm not sure I followed that comment.
He said, just make sure your lower sky color is not more saturated or darker than.
Oh, very good. Yeah, very good. Yep, that's true, because as we approach a horizon, we tend to see a lot. We see a lot of the humidity and colors mixing, which can make less intensity in the color. You want to see the vivid blue. You want to see that as you go higher and higher in the sky usually. So it may not make sense. It may not seem natural if you see a vivid blue down low in your sky. But I'm telling you, Jacob's on it. He's making sure that I practice what I preach. He is on it. So we're going to do that exact thing. As I go down here and I do this lower sky, where I put in all that blue, I'm going to put blue and a little bit of the highlight color right there. And it's going to turn it into this nice faded. There's even a little bit of my shadow colors, and I didn't wash out the brush. So this color is going to be desaturated because of that. Now look, Jacob was right. Look how this looks. Look how it looks. That's more like a distant horizon, because we desaturated, if that's the right word for it, desaturated that sky color. We're gonna have to get Jacob in the studio one of these days. He's starting to know stuff better than me. Okay. So I'll put a few trees in there. We'll put a low horizon. That'll be fun. I'm not worrying too much about getting the color perfectly blended. You can see I've got some streaks, but here's a method to smooth it out if you want to. If you don't want it to look like there's little stretchy clouds across your sky, you find your light spot. So let's say I've got a light spot here and I don't want it streaky. Here's a better method than trying to blend on that spot. Light, dark, 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 light, dark. That's hard to say quick. But the more you bounce your brush from light to dark, the more even it becomes, much more efficiently, because you're not just trying to stretch it like bubble gum across the whole canvas. You're lifting it up, putting it where there's difference, where there's contrast. So you see, I can eliminate so much contrast so much quicker by bouncing from light to dark to light to dark to light to dark, or from one color to another. That's just one technique that I've used a lot as I'm trying to get things done more quickly. Okay. Now, what we'll do next, well, I've got to put some over here. Same thing. I should be consistent. We want to put plenty of our lighter sky color. Now I have less light in the room. I have less light shining on the lower part of this painting just because the way the room's lit. So don't be deceived about this color. If I brought this up, put it on here, you can see it's a different color. You know, it's a little bit lighter. Okay, so let's go down here. Get that in there, and we're going to start putting some tree tops in here. That'll be fun. So what do you think? What kind of color? I think black with some of my atmosphere colors in it will be just perfect. Black, maybe a little bit of green. How are we going to do that? Let's get the black. Black. And what I'll do, I'm going to move this water so I give myself a little room to work. I'll just put it down right on this paint can. I'm working on the bottom of the canvas now. So we'll go down here and start putting some trees in. I think just a touch of yellow will make a good green, but we don't want a lot. So a little bit of yellow in black, I think, could look great. It might be too much. We'll see. We'll see if this is a good idea. Black and yellow. That's making a song in my head. I said black and yellow, and then hip hop song started. No, we're not going to sing it. Okay. This is a tree. And what I'm doing to make a tree, this is not a lesson on trees, but when I make a tree, I'm thinking of clumps of needles or leaves, whatever kind of tree, in little clusters that aim toward the trunk as they go down and diminish. So I want to start in any spot, but then diminish as I move downward toward the trunk. That's going to give me a more believable tree right at the beginning. So it's, I don't really need a whole lot of detailed shapes. We can put a little branch here and there. We'll just use my easel. Get my brush nice and sharp. I switched to my bigger contractor brush a little while back, and so we could put a couple branches. That's what these flat brushes are good for, is making nice straight lines, smooth, long, consistent lines. They are made for this. They're made to drag the long bristles and give you those smooth edges. But we're not going to spend a long time doing that. All we need is just a suggestion of some trees coming up from below. And I'm going to put a lot. It might be cool to put some, I think, a magenta. This will be good. Magenta. Okay. This is what I'm thinking. We need purple shadows because there's a lot of red light in that sky. We need some purple in the shadows, but we can't use that purple. It's too light. There's too much white mixed in that. I'll lose my color. Magenta is going to turn the black into a purple. So we're going to use that. Notice I didn't even clean my brush because it's okay if those colors get in there. Okay, here we go. Look, I love that darker, more purple color against my sky. How close are we to time? We want to start looking at people's pictures at about 11 o'clock. Are we at 11 yet?
10:53.
10:53. Okay. We're going to paint for a few more minutes in order to try to get out of here by around 11:30. My very helpful volunteers have lives to live out there. We can't spend the whole time in the studio today. So we'll get some things painted, move on to your paintings. So I'm going to put a few more trees in here. Now that you've seen these colors I'm working from, well, here we haven't done the yellow yet. We'll put some yellow on here, just a little bit. Watch how this will just burst with green color. So a little goes a long way. I'm going to try to target what looks like the ends of any of my little clumps. Just dabs, kind of scraping the brush in different directions, very short strokes, using the long bristles, light touch, and just a short swipe in different directions to get just a quick suggestion of a shape that's catching the light. And I'm going to put more toward the right side than I do toward the left. But I don't want a lot of that yellow. I don't want a big, colorful green tree. That's something that I see create problems in paintings a lot. Inconsistency of lighting. You can light a tree, you get excited about the bright green color of a tree, but you can forget that tree needs to be very dark if it's late in the day. And so there's really no room for color. when it's that dark. Maybe you could see it when you look with your own eyes. But when all we have is this very small range of contrast to work with in paint, black is not that different from white in terms of paint compared to what you're able to see. You're able to see a black that's much darker. You're able to see a white that's much brighter. Blinding light would be a brighter white. So the more we put color in there, the more we're adding light, and that light may be out of place if you're trying to get a good believable scene. Okay, let's put just a few more little dabs. Maybe some of this. Let's try it. I don't know if this is going to be cool, but this is my cloud transition color. And I think just because there's so much color, it might look cool in just little dabs on these trees. Wherever I have the yellow, just tiny bits, so that the tree looks less green and more colored like the sky, just a touch. See, just a little bit. I could also just use magenta in there with the yellow. Maybe we'll try that on the next one. Who knows? Maybe that'll look better. But I think the point here is thinking it through. The color of the light hitting the tree will change the intensity. We don't have just bright white daylight bringing out the bright colors. So let's put some more trees. Let's do some distant ones. We want this to look three-dimensional. So let's just put a ton of sky right here. Maybe some purple, because when blue atmosphere mixes with these dark colors, it'll turn it more purple. So maybe we can make a distant tree just by mixing some of the purple shadow color and some of the sky into the colors I was already using. And look right here, maybe this is a very distant and tall tree. Let's just make some clumps, go down like this. And when I use this color, it should tell the same story as the rest of the picture. Same kind of colors, suggesting this evening colorful sky setting. So that one might look really far. Let's put a bit more shadow on the left side. Make it darker, and maybe some of that magenta, like I did on this one. Some of this. So again, we're telling the same story. The light is coming from over my right shoulder. It's coming from that direction. So if I make this side of the tree just a little bit darker, that may be all I need on this tree. I might need nothing else. Maybe I don't even need some yellow highlight in this one, because that distant look is kind of nice. Now I'll put these down to give myself room. Put them down on the floor here. And since I'm on my knees and working on the very bottom of this canvas, I'll have an easy time just reaching down there. So let's overlap some dark foreground trees again. Let's make this one going. Maybe like we'll do an old Bob Ross tree, huh? Like this. You go like this. And what do you think? Can I do it? Do I have what it takes? Okay, we'll put little points going up. We'll put a trunk going down like this. We'll take some highlight and put it in there. Let's take some yellow and just right on the tops of these, just like I did the clouds. I did the top edges of the clouds that are catching the light. I'll do the top edges of these little shapes here and there. Maybe a little dab with the brush. I'm putting the handle up because there's a certain shape I get when that bristle bends and it kind of stamps this shape on there. So this is experiment. It's not the way to do it. It's just an experiment to see what kind of shapes I get. I never stop experimenting. I never really land on the exact technique that I'm going to use from now on. I never get there. Never reach the end. This is a tall one. Now I might work on this when this is over a little bit to move this away from the center. We got to watch out. We can't just put something right in the center. We can fix that by putting another one right here. Then it won't be as centered. Let's put two trees close together. We just don't want to have like one straight tree right in the middle of the canvas. We got to watch out for that. I wouldn't call it a mistake. I would call it something that makes the painting feel less worth looking at. So in my book, I would say mistake according to what I'm trying to accomplish. You put something right smack in the middle, it's just has a way of being less interesting. Isn't it funny how that works? You would think putting something right in the middle would say, this is really interesting. What a great idea. But it kind of just looks too unnatural and the believability goes away. All right, I'm just throwing some dark colors on here that I can fine tune later. I can bring in small brush work on details if I want to, but I do like this. I do have a special liking for impressionism. And I enjoy it a lot when I leave the details out. You know, this is something that I think is real fun. Is just putting little highlights and shadows, just enough to get the idea, and then leaving it alone. It's kind of cool. Kind of a fun thing to see it. It's a dreamy look, you know? It's like we don't need the details. We just need enough to send the imagination running. That's enough. Reminds me of the time I saw a dark plastic bag. It was Halloween night. A dark plastic bag came blowing down the street in the wind, and I was sure that it was a black monster coming from who knows where to take me. I was scared to death. Ran behind my family. I was being a little bit slow getting in the house as we were coming home from trick-or-treating. And everyone shut the door behind me. So they're banging on the door, let me in, it's going to get me. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. The power of imagination, how far it ran with just a simple bag blowing in the wind. I saw a head, I saw horns, I saw mean eyes, I saw everything. So in a painting, we can rely on imagination to do a lot for us. I want to put some of this pink color in here too. I like that. Just right where I have the yellow. Oh, we were going to try magenta. Let's see what magenta looks like. Magenta, my favorite color to have around. I just use it in everything. Anyone that's been to my workshops knows that every other word out of color mixing is, then we're going to take some magenta. Then we'll just dab it in here. And if I lose if you overwork it, I'm starting to overwork it now. So this is good for you to see. You start to overwork it. You start to lose your shape separation. You start to lose the interest. And so you might just have to come back in with your first color and redo it. But the more times you redo it, the better you get. So no big deal. You know, I think that's frustrating when you're relying on the organic result of something just happening. But if you're trying to paint something according to what you understand, it's a little different. You value the practice more. It's like, hey, let's just do it again. Get even better practice. How are we doing on the chat?
On the chat, we just got a lot of laughs and stuff at your bag joke.
Oh, is it a dad joke? Is that
Or bag joke. Bag.
Oh, the bag. Oh, yeah, the bag. I thought you said dad joke. I got some of those too.
The Halloween.
Yep, it's true. It's true. I was terrified. I think we all relate to that, don't we? Mm-hmm. We relate to that vivid imagination. Okay, I'm going to go over here, put a few more. See, I don't have to have a perfect horizon going all the way across. It might be cool to, slope it off, make it disappear. So in order to save time, I'll come in here and put in my atmosphere colors, a little bit of purple, some magenta, some black, and I'll cause this tree to go a little further away by using that atmosphere color. And I'm going to just be real loose with the technique, because who knows what, sometimes the coolest things accidentally start taking shape that I didn't plan when I just move quicker than I can think. It's hard to control the shapes I'm making because I can't keep track of it quite as fast as I'm letting the brush keep dabbing it down. Well, that's what I should have done, adding that pink color. See, this is something that happened. I had that magenta first. That's the key. This is where I'm going to add my yellow. See, I just noticed that by going fast. And I thought, hey, you know what? It makes a good base to put the highlights in. Maybe this is not a pine tree. Maybe it's some other, maybe it's a juniper. Let's go like this. Little bits of light hitting that tree. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. We'll grab just a little more. Now I'm using a dabbing technique, just a light pressure stab at the picture. Makes fine details, something like you might see on a decorative bush, a juniper. We have tons of junipers here in Arizona. I like the look of that. Maybe we'll put some more distant trees to finish it off. Let's put some purple, some sky, take some of the black. And we're going to make smaller shapes to make these further away and make them lower. Remember, as they get further, they're now getting lower, just like my clouds, because we're looking up. Because that's the way this picture is oriented. We're looking up at it, so further things go toward horizon, which is downward. I'm going to put some more of this atmosphere in here. And I'll bring that right up behind this tree to make it pop out. That get some layers. And then maybe get some water on my brush. I'll get smaller details with a light dab, watery paint. I can get tiny little shapes like this. See those smaller shapes I can get on my trees? Like this. Maybe some back in here. I like that distant atmosphere color. Negative space. We're doing the negative space again. We'll bring it in here, bring it in here. Let's get some right between these two trees. Just little dabs of it in between the branches. Right here. Look how messy I can be. As long as the colors, well, the shapes matter. That I do focus on a kind of shape. It's just that I do it very loosely because having the colors balanced just really causes the imagination to colors and the values, the lightness, the darkness. I like to think of it as everything telling the same story. All right, we'll leave it there for now. I'm satisfied with that. Might be cool, in the end to put like a close tree up in here. What do you think, Dwayne? Let's do it now. This will be cool. I just got this idea. You think a pine? You think a pine like right up in here, Dwayne?
Yeah.
Will be cool. Let's try it.
Do it.
Put it like this. This will be the quick, rough version of it. We'll come back and fine tune it later, but we're going to put branches. Now this is going upwards, so we're going to see a lot of branches kind of aiming up off of the trunk. And we'll put branches kind of going away from us down here, like this. We'll put some of our magenta and yellow for things that are high enough that I'm seeing the light, just like these clouds that are up high. Some of these branches maybe are catching some of the light coming through them. So I can actually put the light on first, and then I can put the dark on right over the top of it and get that translucent look. Because they've got lighter edges where the foliage is thinning out. That's where you get that lighter color. All right, we'll put this coming down. Tapers off, gets more pointed as it goes up. These will be needles in here. I don't know if we even need to see the trunk really. It's kind of cool like that. Maybe we'll just put a couple long strokes for branches that are going upward, like so. Like this. Maybe some magenta in there, get that purple, that darker purple color. Something that's really in the shadow. I always like to have some branches that are kind of doing unexpected things, So we'll put something going that way, something going that way. I don't like to make everything too predictable and consistent. So once I've got a good pattern established, try to make some less expected elements. Now it makes a nice edge to the picture, doesn't it? Put this in here. Let's put another clump right in here. Like that. We might put some branches going kind of downward too. You know, when you're looking at a tree, you know, you might see branches as they go away from you. They might actually face down. So don't be afraid to go different directions, all directions with those, especially if they're smaller and further away. You know, don't be afraid to make them go downward so you don't get the look of the branches being overly uniform. Now I'm just putting foliage near the end of any branch that I see. It's all just silhouettes, so this is much easier. Any brush stroke that doesn't look very branch-like, that might be a good place to put foliage. All right, cool. I like the way that looks. We'll put a branch going here, big one. That's kind of fun. Let's put another one coming right off that. Maybe another one here. We'll loop that one. This will be a fun little whoop, kind of swoops up like that. I have fun with the shapes on branches, you know. I have a love for it. So it's always a fun thing to build a tree. But I do things that I hate all the time. Then I end up having to paint over the tree. You know, trial and error goes a long way. Bring that down here, and maybe I'll just stop right there. We'll put a few little highlights on here, maybe just coming right off this edge. Highlights there, maybe some magenta. Bright yellow up here where there's more light. Make the tree look closer too by having the bigger brush strokes. There, but we don't overdo it. It won't be a highlight if it's everywhere. So you got to make sure your highlights stay highlights by being sparse and few, so that they still look like highlights. Okay, so I'm going to step back and do a last look at anything on here. This has been a very quick, you know, there is one thing I want to do on this to make these clouds are kind of my centerpiece. That's where I want to draw attention. I'll show you a detail technique before I wrap this up that I'll use as I go over this painting to finish it. I'm going to put my water back up here, rinse off my brush. And so these edges, I really want to give me good perspective. And this is what you've already seen, but I just want to show you what it looks like when you're doing a second coat. You've already got your values in place. You got your light and your shadow set up. And so you're ready to put in your final details. So in here, look how I don't have any edges that are smashed together, not as many. And I want to see that. So when I get up in here, it's real important to me to have these little tiny edges. Now this is right back to the beginning of, I'm going to use my smaller brush because this one's starting to get that, and it's cleaned out with soap. It's starting to split apart on the ends. So we're going to throw that down there. We're going to get this little brush, and we'll start by putting the light color. And these very targeted last details are well worth doing, because these are the places that eyes are going to just go to instantly. So those are areas that I want to put my fine details in. So now I'm just using the mid-tone. That's all I'm using. And I'm going to go in here and do my little quarter circle strokes very close to the edge. And I'm going to let my brush almost have, it has very little of that color in it. I'm going here and grabbing some more. These edges are very close to the very far edge of the cloud. Now I'll do it again here. Maybe I'll even use a little bit of my shadow color. You can hardly even see what I'm doing. I'm going to put some of the combo here, the shadow color, the transition color. I'm going to take that up in here. And after I get my bright color on, so let's put the bright color, my highlight. Then I'll take some of this just on the little corner of the brush, just right here. And again, I'm making an edge. And I'm not doing it by one continuous line. I'm doing these little quarter circle brush strokes with the corner of the brush. And I'm just doing this technique close to the edge. I'm not going to do this out into the body of the cloud. It's just here in order to give me some real tight perspective, make it real believable when someone's eyes go to edges, so it's worth doing that on the edges. So see, I've got very close together edges along the large edge of the cloud. Okay, I'll do that there. Do a couple more here, and then that'll probably sum it up. I just want to make sure that you get all the techniques here that I'm using. So I'm going to put my highlight on in a small enough area that I can manage it as it's still wet. It's important for this particular technique. I like it to stay, paint to be wet on wet. And we're going to put the transition color. That's my pink color. Here's my shadow color right under it. And I'm just putting it on here so that I can mix it. Just that corner of the brush, go right by the edge, right by it. I'm going to start running out of that dark color. You don't want to be afraid of it when it's too dark at the beginning, because what you do is you come back. You go right under it and it lightens it. You just use it for another layer, go over it a couple more times, or even go back with the highlight color. But the goal is to get these as close together. Look, I can go over here, grab the highlight color, go back here and put it in to lighten these, because I don't want them to be dark. I just want them to be visible. So at the point when you think that it's too light to even be visible, that's probably when it's about right. Because when the paint dries, the contrast increases. That's when you'll see those edges. I'm going to put just a couple more in here. Let's continue this one down. I like that edge. Let's put another one in between, right there. Put another one here. It looks like I'm doing nothing, doesn't it? But when this dries, this is going to be a difference maker. This creates the texture that I'm after on the edge of this cloud. And I'm definitely not going to do that everywhere. We'll use a looser technique, more softly blended on most of the cloud. But when I get to those spots where we really have a focal point, where we might put where we'll put something like a kachina in the sky, areas where eyes are going to go. That's where we want to put those details. So now I'm just blending out my spot that I used. So you can see that as it's starting to dry. Look how these are already starting to get more visible, those edges. We don't need to see them that tight all through this. And then it kind of creates interesting shapes inevitably. Look where my light color stopped. It outlined this. It almost looks like a larger clump of cloud out in front of that. If it looks good, I'll leave it. Do this. Okay, I'm going to stop there. That's it. Now, this is a very quick demonstration on the methods that I'm using to get my dramatic clouds look. I used knowledge of the shape, knowledge of the atmosphere, how to put things at different depths in that. So now I can go back and use all of that to do more accurate detail or more smaller details that take more time. And so this shows how quickly I can use that knowledge to build my scene. And then when I come back with a smaller brush, I'm not guessing my way through it. I'm using the same colors, the same methods to fine tune what I think are the most interesting parts of each cloud. Oh, I see one more thing I want to do. You got to forgive me for this. I just can't leave this undone, because I said to myself when I was looking at this before, I don't like this super sharp change on this edge. I want this to emerge out of that shadow a little more. So what do? I make a transition that goes from the shadow color to the highlight. So we're using shadow and midtone. This was a hard subject shift. I was ready to wrap it up, and then I saw this cloud. Now I'm glad I remembered. But watch how it sucks the edge right back into that shadow, just along that edge, and it'll make my cloud look altogether more three-dimensional because of that. Let's put the highlight. This is just the highlight right here. Okay. And then we're going to grab a little bit of my transition. It's going to mix in with some of that shadow, and we'll just make those same edges. Right next to it. Another edge there. Right next to that. Right next to that. Make those little edges. Now look how this it's still a very small gradient. It's not that extreme, but by softening that transition, this cloud looks less flat. It causes that cloud to look like it goes back in, comes forward out of that shadow. I wanted you to see that because that's something I address a lot when I'm fine-tuning my cloud scenes. I'm trying to get every shape to look as three-dimensional as I possibly can make it look. And so that's the process that I'm using. I'm trying to just edges, just looking for all the edges and trying to make them pop out from whatever shadows they're against. That's what I'm doing here. We're going to make this one just pop right out of that shadow. Get some highlight. Just put that bright color right on there. And then that's going to wrap up this painting. This is the last part, really. Really, for realsies, this is the last. Okay. How are we doing over there, Dwayne?
Doing good. Everybody's loving it.
Okay. We're going to wrap this up and look at paintings. Do we have any interesting pictures popping up in the inbox? You can take a look while I'm wrapping this up. We'll get over there. Okay, so now, see, I've got that darker color there, but I kind of lost my highlight. This will be a perfectionist moment where we're fine-tuning these edges. See, darker with the shadow color right on the edge. Just makes it look like that's kind of tipping over the top into that shadow. Then I get these edges and little tiny edges, just with the corner of the brush, little quarter circle strokes. Like this. There we go. Then I'll just blend it down into there. Call it good. Okay, I'm much happier with that. Now we're going to call it. It's done. That's the painting. Okay. We'll let Brian zoom out, give you the final look at that, and I'm going to take a minute to jump over there and see what kind of paintings we're looking at. And again, that's info@muraljoe.com.
Got a few of them in.
If you want us to take a look at a painting, we're going to head over there and do that right now. So I'll shift the microphone over here as well. Sorry if that's making a lot of racket. Go right here so that you can hear us. All looking at the computer here.
And we got a good amount of them.
All right. Thanks, guys, for sending in your work. This is cool. Okay, let's just try to hit them in order.
We got Monique Marion. I live in Quebec.
Hey, thanks for tuning in from Quebec, Monique. All right. Okay, Monique says 1 p.m. It's so late on set. Let me see if I can understand the message here. Oh yeah, you're in a different time zone. Thank you for tuning in. I know it's later there. Enjoy watching you doing your painting. Like the way you teach us. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure. Always wanted to paint water. Here's a painting I did by trying to imitate you. Please tell me what I should do. Okay, let's take a look at that. All right, thank you for the high compliments on my work. I appreciate that. I'm just going to grab my glass of water right here. Okay, we're looking at Monique's painting. Beautiful drama in that picture. I love the stormy sky, and we've got the colorful wave popping up in the light. I love how you put the green. I'm going to use the arrow on here so you can see this is fantastic effect, especially since you have this yellow sky. So we would expect to see that greenish color in there. Well done with that. So I think if you're really trying to dial in the water, I'm going to tell you a couple of things. You can get a more three-dimensional shadow if you want to by adding shadow underneath. Now the shadow is very light shadow, just like clouds. So white water and clouds are very similar. They're both made of water. They're both little pieces of water catching light. So you can use very similar coloring to do them. So you can just do speckles of some gray, violet shadow along the bottom edge of your white water. And that will make this more three-dimensional. You can also soften your gradient here. Gradients are very powerful. So when you create a gradual change of color, it feels deep. That wave will feel more transparent when this gradient feels less sudden. It will immediately have that. And don't forget that if you start losing color where it mixes, if you start losing color where your bright color mixes with your dark color, you can boost the color a little bit where it mixes, because paint does that sometimes. But I wouldn't imagine that would happen with the shade of green. So I just recommend softening that gradient, and then your reflections will pop forward on the surface. The gradient will go back. And that's just in places. I understand that you might have objects in there that are not creating a smooth gradient. You're the artist, you decide. But the power of a gradient is still something. And so then here, this white water splashing up, I recommend taking a look at the videos that I've made on doing splashing water. I've got a series 4 fantastic landscapes you can look at on YouTube, and also on my website, muraljoe.com, where in the Rocky Shore painting, Rocky Shore is the one where we really talk about the shapes of splitting water. You have lots of little splashes, and they stretch apart as they break. So understanding those shapes can really help you with natural clouds of mist. So I'm just going to leave it at that on your water. I love the way you've done your gradients here coming to the shallow water. I love the drama of the splash. Good job, and thank you for sharing that. I would love to see the results. Send the results back to info@muraljoe.com if you get more time to work on this painting. I'd love to see the progress. All right, so we'll go to another one, and we are looking at the inbox here. Let's see who's next in line. Looks like Mary sent something in. Ooh, we got some pretty clouds on that one. Okay, Mary says, okay, recent cloud study. Thank you for sending that. And so mixed colors on the canvas. Well done. That's hard. Mixing colors on canvas is a hard thing to do. So good job practicing that technique. Light, used white, light, aqua blue, dark blue, magenta. Sounds great. Mostly just push the paint around. That's what I do, just like playing with dirt. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to this painting. Good job for playing with the paint and seeing what techniques you can develop on your own. Fantastic. I love it. I love your separation of the of 3 kinds of colors. You have a shadow color, you have a mid-tone where you have lots of color bursting into your shadows from the light, just like I use in my painting. You really did a great job on this, and I love the composition. I like how I can see further to the cloud that's in this divide here. We've got a more distant cloud, or I see you've added more atmosphere, and you got all this color here. And so I can see that you maybe didn't have time to do a lot of sharp details. Wherever you're able to do just what I did at the very end of the project, where you can put layers, slight shadows along your edges, even if they're not real tight, perfect details, just getting scrunched paintbrush strokes along the edges can add a lot of three-dimensional depth to your edges. And then, I mean, it's hard to criticize this because you did such an excellent job with the color. I'm going to say this. Here's something that can make this even better than it already is, because it really is great. Make this gradient more gradual, just like on that wave. So this is a close cloud, and you might want to see more gradual change between this shadow color, this highlight. This creates somewhat of a very square edge. And as clouds get lower in altitude, they tend to get more red. They catch more of the red light in a setting that has a lot of color. So for that reason, it might make this look great to add a bit more color and a bit more gradual transition from this shadow to this light. And then just keep doing the excellent work because you're well on your way here. I love the composition. If you get more comfortable with mixing paint on canvas, build up your speed, try to get some of those shapes along the edges, maybe some even toward the middle. You've got blue sky popping through. Sometimes that blue sky popping through can create a kind of greenish color where it meets the light color. So that's where you can use, again, your transition color. Wherever you want to put sky popping through, transition color helps a lot around those edges to not have it turn an unnatural turquoise color when your highlight meets the blue sky. Just techniques, but your understanding is really shining through. This is excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Mary. So we'll go back and see who's next here. Looks like Daniel sent something. Let's look at Daniel's. Okay, thank you, Daniel, for sending this. I love your colors. Love the contrast. Something I always love. You know, I don't talk about this a lot, but something I think always looks great. Cool colors, right? Blues, violets in gradients that I think look reflective, because as it lightens, it's not moving toward yellow. And so that it's doing the opposite. So as this is lightening, we have this lighter grayer color, and that is more of a reflective look of clouds in a shadow. So that's cool. Good color combos. When that is right next to the opposite kind of gradient where things are moving toward yellow as they get brighter. So here we have, you know, if you imagine a rainbow, in the shadows we have these colors. We have, you know, imagine there's a red, and then it goes to a purple, and then it goes to a blue. So we're moving away from yellow, orange, red, purple, blue. We're moving away from the yellow in that sense. And so this doesn't look as translucent in here. It looks like there's light skylight maybe bouncing off of it from somewhere. And it looks reflective. Whenever that's against another gradient, gradients next to gradients create this awesome looking contrast where the yellow fades to this red, and then you have a cool gradient next to it. You have a warm colored gradient next to a cool colored gradient. Can't go wrong with that. I think it always looks fantastic, just color choice wise. So then let's talk about the techniques achieving the scene that you've created. So I love the light that you've got in here. Don't be afraid to make clumps of dark. So just like you did this dark clump, excellent work. I'd say don't be afraid to do a little bit more of that in smaller places. You've already done it. So I'm just saying, good job. Don't be afraid to do more because it's a great effect because we have everything backlit. So wherever you have a plant, you can put a darker color. So even on the flowers, you could put a darker redder color near the middle of these just to get the look of it being backlit. And you could really run with this effect that you've already done really well. Good job getting lots of color in the transition between the shadow and the light. And so in a painting like this, where you have water going off to the horizon, you can really scrunch your shapes on the horizon to get a lot more depth. So you can add both atmosphere and you can add depth by putting atmosphere along this horizon. So all of this, when you have this orange color from the sun, beautifully done. I love the rays, the gradient, looks like light. When you have that, it kind of looks like you got a big crashing wave here. So if it's behind that, put some, I don't know, some real pale greenish color, whatever color you want the water to be, put a little bit of it shining through if that wave is rising up, maybe just a tiny bit. But wherever you're looking far to the horizon, it's up to you to decide. Get some atmosphere in there and you'll get so much more depth. Atmosphere is powerful for making depth. And if you put a lot of scrunched shapes, little horizontal waves, water is very sensitive to texture. So it looks like water when the artist is very careful to manage the direction of the texture. So if you work on consistency with the horizontal strokes, it's fun to break it apart. That doesn't mean these are bad. These are great where it's moving and it's breaking apart, but you still need the the presence in a picture for something to look as much like water as it can, have the presence of very consistent strokes going the exact same directions, and it'll create a horizontal surface for the rest of these things to pop out of. And that can really help. And you can on those little horizontal strokes use these colors from your sky and get some real dramatic reflection. The reflection of that this sky on that water could look really awesome. And so don't be afraid to just pull down these purple colors. You don't need an equal amount. A little bit goes a long way. I know how ocean can be a very dark scene. You don't always see much reflection. But if you get a little bit of the atmosphere along here, maybe little bits of reflection, the painting will be more interesting for it. And then last thing I'll say is when water hits a beach, it ramps up and reflects the lower parts of the sky colors. So don't be afraid to put a strip of maybe your purple and orange mixed with your dark water color, dividing your beach from your deep water. That will also be a real cool effect. It'll make it look like the waves are ramping up onto the dirt. And you can even create a gradient if you make it happen gradually. Then you'll cause this land to go gradually into the water and get more depth because of that. I'll stop there. Beautiful, beautiful work with the light. The light really catches my eye. I love it. Okay, we'll see if we got another one to look at here in the inbox. I'm sipping on my water as I talk here, trying to be smart about saving my voice. Okay, looks like Harry sent something in, and it says, doesn't seem to have the right color in my water highlights. Well, let's take a close look at it and see. Oh, cool, it's on a fence. I love that. That's really neat. Okay, so I'm not going to call it the right color. I mean, I know what you mean, the right color, but I try to steer away from being the person that's telling you what you're supposed to be doing. So I'm going to tell you how this compares to my observations. So if you think about your underwater color, we want the color that would be the result of the underwater color mixing with the color being reflected. So where I'm dragging my mouse back and forth, beautiful work, by the way, with the sun bright white in the middle, perfect for it looking like a bright explosion of light, turning from the yellower colors toward the red. It's actually moving toward purple, even though it never gets there. And that's perfect. Great pattern for light bursting through an atmosphere. That's beautiful. Don't be afraid to put a little bit of more red color. So this is what I'm talking about, where you lose a little bit of natural light color, where your orange goes to clouds. And so, you might be able just to put a little bit of red. I just can't resist saying, maybe magenta in here to add the color back in that's lost when the paint mixes. But that's up to you. This looks really beautiful. So on your reflection, I would go a little darker, just a little darker, because when the ocean is real choppy, you're looking at a lot of the front faces of all those waves out there. Maybe it's calm. Maybe you want the water to look calm, but based on the waves, based on the texture you've put in, it looks like it would be a little bit more ordinary, which has some pointy waves as you go deeper. And for that reason, you can have a bit more contrast. So don't be afraid to darken it just a touch. Your colors are good. I like this color. And so it's a bit more purple. So if this was any shade of blue, I think you would have that in here. And so I think that you could add little bits of your maybe on the faces of the waves, you might have little bits of your underwater color. Whatever you choose that is, it could be, did I say that right? Yeah, whatever you choose that to be. It might be more on the darker blue side. It might be on the turquoise side, whatever you want. You can just put little horizontal dashes. I think that this reflection does look like a reflection because this orange is turning a bit more purple as it's mixing with what might be a bluish colored ocean. And for that reason, I think you would see colors like this. But let me tell you something I think might be standing in the way of this looking like natural reflection. Just like on the last painting, you have the presence of lines that are more diagonal all through your texture. So when you have a texture that's creating a lot of diagonal lines on a surface that is very horizontal, then it can cease to look like a horizontal. It can cease to look like a surface that's going back, back, back. So I think that you could get this reflection to look much more reflective just by adjusting some of your shapes. So wherever you see lines, I'm going to pinpoint it for you. Okay, I'm going to go to a couple that are exactly what I'm talking about. The angle of this line. This is sloping more than what I would expect to see on a wave that size. Perspective would level this line out quite a bit. Even if it was a wave going somewhat sideways, it still would be more level than this if you're looking at a surface. And I see many lines like that, like this. And I see one here. And you can have some of those, I'm not saying they're wrong, but when there's so many, it can cause your water to start looking like you have objects laying on top of it rather than a horizontal surface. So consistency with the very horizontal, consistent texture can help a lot. I actually do like the colors that you've chosen. I might go a little bit less pink. I might go a little more toward gray. A gray can be a fantastic color. I might do a gradient that goes more like the sky out here, more like the orange, and gets more gray as it comes down rather than pink. So if it's mixing with any kind of brown or bluish water, then I would not expect to see the lighter pink color, maybe more gray. So as it goes gray mixing with this, then it starts to turn to whatever color is under the water. So you might expect to see darker and darker colors in this foreground because that's where you're looking down. That's the other thing that can really help reflection is making truer colors where you're looking horizontal to the surface. Truer colors meaning more like the reflection itself. And then making darker underwater colors as you come closer. But it's up to you to decide what that underwater color is. But you can trust that pattern. More underwater color here, more sunset here, more gray across the middle. Try that out. See if it helps. I think it will. Don't be afraid to do like we said in the other paintings. Some of the blue, violet colored shadows will look real dynamic on this splashing water, just a little bit. So those are things to try. Love your painting. I love the mood of these boats out here. It's a place. It looks like a place I want to be. I want to sit there for a while and take it in. Good job on that, and thanks for sharing. Okay, so we're gonna go back to the inbox. See if we got anything else in here, and we've got Ray says. Here, let's open this up. Let's see what we've got. Would love to collaborate with you someday. Okay, you've been in progress for the last 18 months. Very good. I like what I'm seeing. I think it would be so much fun to collaborate, Ray says. And so here's a mural in the laundry room. And I'm worried about it being good enough. Bright idea of painting a cave to cover the cracks still there in the ceiling. It worked. He said it looks great. It's pretty cool. I have to finish the lady on the steps. It's also black light reflective. Oh, that sounds hard. Okay. Sounds good. We're going to take a look at this and see what we've got. We got multiple pictures here. Whoa, that's a lot to look at. Very cool. Okay, it looks like you used airbrush in here. That's neat. All right, I like the dolphins jumping. I like the bright colors. So when you're doing water, airbrush is a well, I don't know that you used airbrush. I see a lot of softly blended work here. And so what I see in here is really cool separation of objects, but you could get the same thing as the last one. You could get a little bit of gray, purple on this surface to make it look like it's going back, and then add little bits of this pink on top of that. Get some reflection on that. Might look amazing to add to that already vivid blue color. I love the content here, real magical looking, and that's super cool that it works with the black light. I love your bright splashes around the dolphins jumping and the shapes of your tumbling wave. That's cool. Don't be afraid to use some purple in those waves. you could use some purple. Whoa, I'm having trouble with my computer here. You could use some purple in these. Oh, it's because I spilled some water on the little mouse pad here. Give me a second to fix that. You could use a little bit of blue violet in this. Same thing I said on the others. I'm being redundant. And you could get more lifelike shadows on this. Just something you could do. And so, but I really like it. I like the movement and the jumping dolphins. That's super fun. And how you have it go into like almost an outer space looking sky. That's real magical looking. Let's go to the next one. Let's see what you've got. Here we've got this. Okay, this is a room. You really did a lot of work here. Very cool. And this dark ceiling, you know, I'm sure it makes these colors really pop out. The contrast on that, I think is really good. You know, when you choose a spot to make real bright and pop out, you put dark colors against it so that you really see it. And so we've got like a very cave-like look in there, don't we? That's pretty neat. Let's go over to the next one and see what else we got here. Oh, this is another work you've been doing. All right, good job. Lots of different content on here. So this is the outside of that building. I didn't do a good job of reading your message that you sent. So mixing lots of content is a tough thing. You know, I find that it's helpful. You know, the rules I've learned mixing light are helpful in everything. It can look real good when you're mixing different colors. For some reason, like this area where you have, I'm trying to zoom in on this picture a little bit. In an area like this where you have orange going against blue, you know, those blends can look so much more interesting sometimes by getting a little bit of transition in there, where the orange goes to some kind of a gray purple. Little things, you know, things you can add. But I love how you got all these different ideas in here. That place looks like it's really fun. And so then let's see what you've got on the next one. We'll go to the last. Is that the final picture? Here, let's see. There's one more here. Let's go over here, look at another. All right, cool. Okay, I'm going to give you some tips on depth, and maybe these will transfer to the other paintings as well. So you've got some really fun content, bright colors, good movement. I like your eagle flying, carrying the flag. That's cool. And you've got this water. So something that I think could really add to this is being able to get more depth. And so that can be achieved by being sure that the darkness of your most distant layers is not darker than your closest layers. So distant mountains like this, you might choose to lighten them up in order to keep them further back. And then when you're doing a layer like this in front of it, you might do that in slightly varied heights so that it looks like, you know, maybe you have flowers in front of other flowers, and then you can, or what it, you know, maybe these are colored trees, but getting the colors in front of other colors, getting layers in front of each other. I see a continuous layer like this where, you know, eyes, they really find a line. So when you find a line going all the way across a layer, so the more you can break apart a line into multiple shapes, it can really help the depth in a picture. And again, on the water, good job. This looks like reflection here, but you could get more consistently horizontal texture. I see some bending going on, and that can sometimes turn it into an up and down looking shape instead of that smooth horizontal surface that you're after. And then you might think about using more pale colors in the sky. Now, I don't know. Working with these bright, I don't have a lot of experience working with things that light up in a black light, but those are things I would try for because the sky really pops forward with those bold colors. And so you might choose some lighter colors, but I don't know. It's a sunset. So I might be wrong on that, you know. So to get the distance on this, maybe it's more like add some of that bright orange color to your distant layers so that it really looks like it's glowing, creating depth. Maybe add some where you have yellow starting to turn green where it hits blue. That can really look more like glowing light and atmosphere if you just if you just get some kind of a light purple and use just enough to take away that gray. Those are little things that can add depth to your picture. I hope that's a help. Thanks for sharing this. Super cool that you did that big project. Good job for diving in and doing all that fun content. Really like seeing it. Okay. I think that is all we've got for right now. Let's go back here. see if we're missing anybody. Nope, we got it. We got all of them. Thank you so much. And I'll be watching my email to do any follow-up with these. I love seeing what you guys are working on. And so Dwayne, give my camera a kick there. Sorry. It's like, boom. Earthquake. So can't tell you enough how much I appreciate being along for the ride here and sharing your work and asking all the good questions, the comments along the way. This has been a blast, and I look forward to getting this all edited. So I'm going to leave this video up for a week, just like all of the previous videos. Then it's going to be pulled. It'll all be posted on my website, muraljoe.com, and then eventually edited and packaged into a full lesson that can be downloaded. I'll be selling that on the website. And as always, I really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. I love being able to stay in touch, and it's an honor that I get to show off for you with future projects. I would love to hear. Send ideas to info@muraljoe.com. If you have ideas for the next live series, something else that we should do just like this, where we're doing the whole thing on camera, doing it live, talking through what it takes, I would love to hear what you have to say about it. Okay, I think I've covered it all, and I'm going to look forward to seeing you the next time we do this. So stay in touch. You can always get on my mailing list also. So you can see that on my website, muraljoe.com. You'll see a link that lets you sign up for the mailing list. I'll leave it at that, and we'll see you guys next time.